Yabo. I'm doing 3 in a row because I'm a little bit wired. I have a little bit of coffee, but hey, coffee, cool. In this one I'm gonna talk about yoga. I practice Iyengar Hatha yoga. Oh, the Hatha yoga of the Iyengar variant, you could say. Anyways, I read in last month's issue of Yoga Journal that a lot of what we know of as yoga nowadays is actually derived not from the actual spiritual practice of the gurus, but of the late 19th, early 20th century vigorous exercise. The concept of being physically fit. Well, what is yoga? Well, basic yoga is the spiritual and meditative arts of the gurus, the religious leaders of the Hindu religion in India. By and large, largely asana up until that point was used as a centering practice. They would get into a particular asana that they liked and stay there until they started reaching a area of area of balance, and then they would go further into other meditative practices. But by about the 19th, 20th century, if I remember correctly, India was a British colony. As a way of and from what the articles pretty much stated, it was as a way of teaching both combat techniques and physical fitness. A lot of the modern names of yoga taught this variant of yoga to the populace, and it's not exactly far off for that sort of thing. If we look at various different ceremonial and rhythmic martial arts, that is the case. I mean, look at capoeira. It's actually designed as a form of dance. Well, they designed it as a dance as a way of hiding the martial techniques. Inside the jinga, they would teach the various techniques of proper kicking and whatnot. The reason they kept the hands close was because supposedly their hands were bound by chains, so they used what they knew. Don F. Draeger, in an article about him, it talked about how he, as part of the Scat Band committee, he instructed certain practitioners of Japanese martial arts to move very, very slowly or very, very stylistically in front of the Scat Band authorities, so that they would think that the martial art as it was fairly useless, as it was just a remnant of the culture. It was so, since it was now considered, since they considered it a dance, it would be approved, and then it would go off and become, and they could study how it really worked. And actually, certain tribes in the far, in certain jungle locations still do it, as a mixture of teaching the martial heritage of their culture, certain cultural values, the music, dance techniques that they would need as a way of becoming men and whatnot, and largely to teach the martial techniques without having spies come in. Most of these tribes are actually fairly close together. So what they would do is they would teach the dances, and if a spy came in, it's like, oh, they're dancing, when in fact that they're actually learning the martial techniques, and it's rather interesting. And also there is a couple of modern equivalents to that. Outside of capoeira, you have the Maori of the Maori ceremonial dances that actually still teach the martial techniques. And they're, from what I gather, fairly useful and vigorous. I mean, the Maori pretty much kept themselves from getting taken over by the British while using very hard wood weapons against sabers. And let's put it this way, the English accounts are fairly humbling toward the English. And it just gives one something to meditate on. I mean, it's nothing that rocks the boat. It's actually fairly not too uncommon, and just something that is actually fairly neat. Anyways, if you wanna, once again, if you want to script write, do it.